All my dear students, welcome to my digital platform Sociology Study. Today, my topic is suicide and Emile Durkheim. Durkheim related the problem of suicide to his study of division of labor. To some extent, he approves of the phenomenon of organic division of labor and regards it as a welcome development in human society. However, he also notes that the individual is not properly satisfied with his lot of modern society, and hence there is an increase in the number of suicides. The increase in the number of suicides considered by him as an expression of certain pathological features of modern society. Durkheim considers suicide not as an individual but as social phenomenon. Apparently, suicide seems to be the most personal matter of an individual because nothing may be considered more personal than the decision to take one's own life. Durkheim argued that the decision of an individual to commit suicide is taken because of certain social forces. He tries to bring out the relationship between suicide as individual phenomenon and the suicide rate as social phenomenon. He found that suicide rate is frequency of suicide is a given population is relatively consistent. It does not vary arbitrarily, rather it varies as a result of many circumstances and variation in suicide rate. Accordingly, Durkheim, sociology must establish correlation. Durkheim does not accept the psychological explanation for suicide. In order to prove his viewpoint, he examined the variation in suicide rate in different populations. For example, he considered various regions and remarks that the proportion of neurotic of insane persons among Jews is particularly high. On the other side, suicide rate among them is quite low. Thus, he comes to the conclusion that there is no correlation between the psychological factors and suicide rate. Emile Durkheim explained three types of suicide. These are egoistic suicide, altruistic suicide, and anomic suicide. First of all, egoistic suicide. Those people who think primarily of themselves and are not integrated into a social group are prone to egoistic suicide. In order to explain this type of suicide, he established correlation between the suicide rate and integration of social contexts such as religion and family. On the basis of correlation, he comes to certain conclusions. First of all, suicide rate increases with the age. It is higher among men than in women. It is higher than childless women. It is higher among Protestant Christians as compared to the Catholic Christians. Altruistic suicide, when the individual is so much attached to the group that he loses his personal identity, he is prone to this type of suicide. For example, participant of Sati in India, suicide can also take place due to an internalized social imperative. For example, the captain of sinking ship preferred to die than to leave it. Similarly, Durkheim finds that in some professional organizations like the army, the suicide rate is higher due to disappearance of individual identity in the group. Next is anomic suicide. When there are abnormal conditions and breakdown of norms, individuals are prone to this type of suicide. For example, suicide rate goes up both in times of economic crisis and extreme prosperity. Durkheim explains this type of suicide in terms of crises created by social disintegration and the weakening of groups' norms which bind the individual to the group. For example, the suicide rate increases with the increase in the divorce rate. Lastly, fatalistic suicide. Emile Durkheim discusses only in a footnote this type of suicide. When the regulation becomes weak in a society, anemic suicide is more likely to occur. On the opposite side, fatalistic suicide is more likely to occur where regulation is excessive. Durkheim described those who are more likely to commit fatalistic suicide as a persons with future pitilessly blocked and passion violently choked by the oppressive discipline. For example, slaves who takes his own life because of the hopelessness associated with the oppressive regulation of the every action. Thank you for watching this academic video. To get more video, please subscribe this channel and like this channel.